Good morning, everybody. You hear me okay? Yeah? So, as our chairman was saying, I'm actually from the UK, but I've been living in South Asia for about 10 years now. So 6, 7 years in India and 3 years in Bangladesh. I work for Tesco International Sourcing, and we have a small office in Gurgaon. I'm not into apparel. I'm more into general merchandising, which is predominantly bedding, curtains, bicycles, potpourri, things like that. Okay. So if you have any questions for me about cuffs or ties or shirts, sorry, don't know. Okay. If you ask me about a bicycle, I may be able to answer something. This morning, where are we? Yeah. This morning, I really wanted to I was very interested with the word creative thinking. I really wanted to use that in my presentation this morning, because that's the theme that I really want to run through my next few minutes. And I was given a brief to talk about quality. Yeah, I've worked a lot in quality over the last 30 years that I've been in the sourcing and production industry. But the thing that now that I'm a general manager that strikes me is that quality and all the other elements of the business need to be integrated very much. And that's what I want to get across this morning. From my point of view, and some people might disagree, but this is what I want to get across this morning. There are 4 parts of the business. Whatever business that you're in, if you're making bicycles, or if you're making shirts or denims or bed linen, whatever, computers, there are actually 4 parts of the business or production. And those 4 parts will actually drive a competitive advantage for you if you secure them all at the same time. What are those 4 parts? Well, actually, they're quality, of course, and I put that on the top because that's supposed to be what I'm talking about. It's quality, it's availability, which is you deliver it on time. It's there for the customer. It's available. It's compliance, so that the goods are actually legal. Your production is legal in terms of Indian law or any international law. And it also complies with the requirements of your customers, which if most of you are exporters, your customers now, particularly the big multinational companies, they all have their code of conducts, they all have their ethics teams, they all issue their statements about their values and what their production and their suppliers are supposed to be like. Very important. And then they have price, of course. It has to be price. You know, that's the start and the end of the game. If we're not having a competitive price, then we're not going to be in. We're not going to have competition. We're not going to be at an advantage. Now, when I started as a young lad 30 years ago, when I had hair, there was only 2 things that we were really interested in, really. And that's what was my managers used to drive me, and that was, of course, price. And it was delivery. Everything else, what? We hadn't even heard of compliance. What was a code of conduct? We didn't bother about things like that. Quality, what the hell, just ship. Yeah, just throw it out there. 30 years ago. All of you in here, if you were in the industry 20 years ago, you could probably recognize that yourself. You can probably think to yourself, those were the great days. Those were the days when we really knew we had a really good time, when we used to really throw out the volume. We used to get it on a good price, and we had a huge margin. We had a fantastic margin. Now, of course, all these are the integral part of the business. You have to secure every part of this. These 4 parts, I don't know if you can argue against them, and you could probably add to them, and please do, in your own mind, add to them. But we must get these, and we must all work together to secure them. And each of us, we shouldn't be in our little silos, in our little functions. Well, I'm the quality manager, so I'm going to do my 6 Sigma. I'm going to get my green belt and my black belt. I'm going to get all that. And I'm the merchandiser, so I'm just going to get the order, I'm going to give the customer a pretty good price, and then I'm the production manager and I've got my output targets, and I'm the delivery manager and I need to know my logistic costs. We all have to be working together, because if we don't, it won't work. And I suggest to you that in India it's not working. Oops. Because in India, I actually believe what we have here is a three-legged chair. Because, why is it three legs? Well, something's missing. If you look at the chair as the four parts that I've been talking about, to me, there's always something missing. If it's not quality, it's compliance. If it's not compliance, it's the price. If it's not price, it's delivery. The stuff's always getting shipped late. The quality's never quite right. And by the way, too many hours have been worked at the factory in Panipat or in Oakland or wherever. There's always something going on. Now, what you can do, if you're very good, you can actually sit on a three-legged chair, can't you? You've got three legs on the chair. If you see that as the four parts, you can actually sit on a three-legged chair. No problem. You can sit there and you can balance it. Yeah? You can't go back. You can't lean back or anything. You can just about do it. And that's where we seem to be. Yeah? We're on that three-legged chair and we're balancing it and we're just about getting there. What we really need to be, we need to be with this chair. We need to have this chair with four legs. You can actually see four legs. It's quite a nice solid chair. And actually we're having a party on this chair because we're doing everything right. Because everything is there. We've got the quality right, we've got the availability right, we've got the compliance right, and we have the price right. So what I want to get across this morning is thinking about a virtuous circle to avoid a vicious circle. And this is where I'm very keen on the creative thinking part, because I want you, because the reason that you're here today is that you want to learn something. You want to know what's going on in the business. You also want to meet some old friends or some old enemies, see what they're up to. But you're here to learn something and to take something back with you to your factories. And I want to do that. There's no point me standing up and just saying blah, 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 Tesco this, we do that, Six Sigma, just in time. There's no use me doing that. You've got to take something back. Whether you take it back is up to you, but this is what I want for the next few minutes. I'm really looking to put across to you how that we can go from that three-legged chair at the moment, which I think is a vicious circle, we just can't get out of it, where we should be going to a virtuous circle. And it's not about methods or anything like that. They are important and they need to be done. It's more about how do we think about the business? How do we creatively get across to the rest of our colleagues in the factories and co-workers and the rest of our management team how we should be thinking about the business? So, I want us to avoid a vicious circle. So what exactly is a vicious circle? Can you read? Oh, sorry, perhaps you can't read that very well. So I'll explain as best as I can. What I mean by a vicious circle is that if we take quality in the top right-hand corner, this is a mind map, by the way. I do mind maps all the time, and I really like mind maps. As I get older, I need to do more mind mapping. I can't quite remember everything through the day. I can't quite read all those papers and all those reports and all those emails that everybody seems to produce these days. So I like everything to be on one piece of paper. So I produce it and I like to read it in a mind map form. So this is a mind map of a vicious circle. In the top right-hand corner of the circle is quality. Yeah, because my background's quality. I'll always say that it starts at quality. But if we don't get the quality right, what happens in quality? The buyer comes along, he sends his inspection team, the inspectors say there's something wrong with this, scrap the whole lot or rework it. What happens then? Well, we have to then go down to availability and then look at our production plans. We have to change our production plans in some way or another. Once we change our production plans, we then start to go into compliance issues. Why is that? Well, possibly because, well, the production planners didn't take into account that we would have a batch rejected. The customer, Tesco, Carrefour, whoever, is screaming at you. I need availability. I need it now. You cannot delay shipments. Back in the old days, 20, 30 years ago, you had 1-2 week tolerance. Now you've got hourly, daily tolerances. You can't afford to miss anything. Your customers are screaming at you. Production plans have got to be put in place. New urgent production's got to go through. You then start getting into issues of overtime. Already the workforce is probably working well over 48 hours a week. They're probably hitting 60 hours on a regular basis. Suddenly there's a new production order gone in because we've had a failure at quality. So we get stress on our workforce. We get stress on our machines, and we're not compliant because most of you, I should expect that, have to be compliant with 60 hours in India, and that's your maximum. If the law finds out, and if your customers find out that you're working more than 60 hours, then you start to run in the risk of being non-compliant. In addition to that, if you're in, say, the textile industry, and you've got your own printing house, you're going to have to print extra. And by the way, production planning only allowed for, say, 5 dark runs on your printing machine, on your rotary printer. So, because of the quality problem, you've had to do 10 dark runs on your printing. And if you have an ETP plant, the pressure on your ET plant is increased because the quantity that was rejected was, say, China red. So all the dark colours are being manufactured twice what was planned, and the load and the pressure on the ETP is going up. So you now got pressure on the ETP. The ETP is not, the effluent treatment plant is probably not working correctly. So then you've got problems there. Then your customer comes along with his ethical team and finds out that you're working way too many hours and your ETP isn't working correctly. And all the time you're incurring more and more costs as you're going along. And then finally, you become uncompetitive. You're not competitive because you've lost all your money on that batch that's gone through. All because it started from a poor quality. Probably because you didn't have process controls in place, or there was some problems with the raw materials coming through and not checked correctly. All because we started at quality, it didn't work at quality. We then had to replan it, but we still had to deliver it on time. We then end up with the compliance issues, and we then have a price problem because all the costs are being up and up. And by the way, your customer is screaming at you for delivery, and then they're screaming at you for ethical, and then they hit you with a penalty. Yeah? Do some of you recognize this scenario that I'm painting? So that then is a vicious circle, because what happens then? Because we're losing money in production, what happens then? The famous chairman or the managing director or somebody like me, a general manager, starts screaming their head off. I'm not making money, I'm not making money. So then you start to try and cut corners. And then you get back into more quality problems, or you've got production problems, or you've still got compliance problems. It just feeds on itself. It becomes a vicious circle. We still end up with a 3-legged chair. So how do we really get away from that? We have to be thinking about a virtuous circle. And essentially, it's the opposite of what I've been talking about. Get our quality right, get our process controls in place. But if you understand what I mean by process controls, is that if you're printing, make sure that you're on your printing, that the speed of the printer, the rotary printer is correct, the bar pressure is correct, the temperature is correct. Do all those kind of things. Getting your SPIs correct, all the standards, get them all right. That I'm led to believe that you've been working a lot in the last few years in this group. get the quality right, and then it flows. Production planning has no problems. It planned to do this, and it goes through the factory, no problem. Our compliance issues, we don't have any overtime issues, we won't have any effect on the ETP, our effluent treatment plant, if you're a printer or a dyer, that's working fine, no issues. And then finally, you actually make your little bit of margin. Yeah? Because at the moment, you know, I don't know what margins you're making specifically, but they're not as good as they are 20 years ago, are they? Eh? You used to make 20, 30%. I was in the industry then. I was buying then 20, 30 years ago. The margins we got, when we found out in the UK, when I was sat at my desk in Manchester, eventually the penny dropped about what the margins you were earning in South Asia. So now we're here, and the margins, the brands are here, and your margins are really squeezed. You cannot afford to have a virtuous circle. You cannot afford to balance the three-legged chair. You need to have a virtuous circle. You need it because your margins are so tight now. You need this to work, and you need your team to come out of their silos. Your merchandiser has to be thinking about quality. Your quality has to be, manager has to be thinking about ethics. He has to be thinking about delivery. Your ethics people, the people who are supposed to be checking all your compliance issues, they need to be switched into what's going on. They can't just be going along blah, 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 blah. They need to be a part of the process. Everybody, it's all got to come together to create the virtuous circle. Now, you can start anywhere. It doesn't have to be a quality problem. You could have a quality problem in compliance, first of all, and it still has it. But if you get all of them right, then they work very nicely together. And if you think about it, if you get all of them right, if you get your quality right, if you get your deliveries right, these are basic stuff. It's all about being an efficient and effective factory. What I'd like to propose now for you, you can accept or reject this, what I'm saying, but if you accept it or you recognize some parts of it, please, I'd just like to give you some things to think about. Try to drive the ideas of what I'm talking about bringing everything together through all levels. So try to get your people to think beyond their function, beyond their silo of work. If you like that mind map of the virtuous circle, distribute that. Make it a small credit card size so they can put it in pockets and they can think about it. It doesn't have to be a big paper. It doesn't have to be a training session where you can hire all these consultants. You can do these kind of things yourself. You don't need that. Think about it. It's all more about creative thinking and application of ideas in your factory and in your management team. Have a holistic relationship as well with your customers. Get them to understand that if we have this issue now, something else is going to give, so that they're aware of all the consequences that could happen. Very often I see merchandisers in factories and in offices here in India, and you know that they're getting a lot of abuse from the other side on the phone. You know there's a lot of abuse going on. That's because they're not able to convey to people what's the whole picture. If we can have a holistic view, whole picture, then I'm sure that your customers will be a part be a part of your process instead of the one who's hammering your process, your production. Talk constantly about the circle in some way or another. It doesn't have to be my circle. Find the 4 parts to your business that you think, if I get all these right, this factory will be sitting on a 4-legged chair. So it doesn't have to be what Mark says about quality compliance. It could be whatever you think is important. I'll be surprised if you find something else, but please do. Please do that. Get across them the message to create a competitive advantage. That's the key message for me today, is that by including not just price and not just delivery, but also quality and also your compliant, ethical, technical issues, you're creating a competitive advantage. If you don't get these right, I know for a fact that who I work for now, Tesco, the big UK retailer, we don't buy from companies who cannot give us these 4 parts. We can't do it. Forget it. It doesn't work. We'll not do it. We've got a huge brand. I think it's about 65 billion pounds worth, over 100 billion US dollars worth of brand. And we can't put it at risk by not securing these 4 parts. So, what I would like you to be is like a dog with a bone, really. Talking about quality, availability, compliance, and putting it all together. And remember, these things are not just for a factory and actually for competitive advantage. It's also for the customer. Mrs. Jones in Manchester, which is where I come from, Mrs. Jones in Manchester, when she goes to a Tesco, goes to the store, for her to buy it, it's got to be there. If it's not there, she's not going to buy it. It's as simple as that. If she's not going to order it and expect it, it's got to be there. So it's got to be available. When she picks it up, and so when she uses it at home, she expects it to work, whatever it is. If it's a bicycle, if it's a tea towel, if it's a bed linen, or if it's a shirt, she always expects it to work. She doesn't expect it to fail. Compliance, she doesn't want to know. She doesn't even want to hear that a child may have made this product. She doesn't want to know that. That's not factoring in her thinking. She expects that Tesco, whoever your clients, whoever your customers, will look after that. And of course, finally, she's always interested in the price, the right price. These days, she might not go for the cheapest, but she certainly will go for the right price, what she thinks is right. So when I say fight like a bone, be like a dog with a bone, it's really because what I want you to do is to fight for the customer when you get back to the factories. Yeah, fight for the virtuous circle, try to get to that place that you want to be. But essentially what you're really doing is that you're fighting for the customer. Get the customer happy, you'll get more business, and you'll increase the business. And then you get into that virtuous circle again. So, that's it for me. It was just a message. It's not anymore about technical specifications, about methodologies or anything. It's more about the message. And it's a message. Oops. And it's a message that I've learned over the many years that I've been in purchasing and sourcing for multinational companies. If you like some of these mind maps or any other kinds of visual, I have a small website where I developed them a few years ago. I've put them up there. They're available for you to download just there if they're of any use to you. Also, there's things about quality, about product development, about production. There's all kinds of things there. Please, if you're interested in that. And what I'm very much interested in is getting the message across, being creative about how we work with these things these days. We've done all the technical part. We all know what the specifications are. We've done all that now. We got past that years ago, and I'm sure you would all agree on that. What we need to do now is to be, as the theme of your conferences is about creative thinking. And I'm very, very interested in how we move forward in the next few years doing that. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.